Oh, okay. So we're not sure about whether it's on your channel. I'm pretty sure it's on my channel so far, but I only have minor indications, so I could
So
easily be
today
wrong.
will sort of be an experiment. You
It
and
is.
I will be experimenting not only just in the conversation, but we'll also be experimenting with this video thing. So
Yeah, with this
allegedly,
StreamYard interface to see if it works for doing what we're trying to do.
yes, we will both be streaming this on our own channels.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are. And yeah, we have not pre planned any initial conversation pieces, and
Hmm.
I didn't write any questions down.
Okay, that's fine.
So this will be a
I'm prepared
completely
for that list. Mm-hmm.
this will be a completely free conversation.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Sasha.
Um, yeah. So
So tell me, do you have any indication that on your channel it's streaming yet?
I have a check mark. There are
Okay.
two check marks. So I think that
Guys,
it
I see
is.
some check marks, and yeah. Well, let's.
I think it's gone live. So shall we begin, Dali?
Go ahead. This is your show. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm your guest.
so
I should be on this side. Oh, tell me.
so yeah. So I'm curious. How would you introduce yourself? What is it
How would
you
I
do, Dolly?
introduced? Oh,
How do you pronounce your name?
my name is
Am
Dali.
I butchering
Uh,
it?
nope, you're doing fine. I was named after the painter with the funky mustache, and the sadhana is from Sanskrit, and it's a spiritual thing. Anyway, and what do I do publicly? Publicly, I'm kind of a missionary for critical thinking.
Okay.
That's the role I have. I want to push for critical thinking, and I want to do so to such a focus that for the most part I ignore my other concerns in its favor.
Mhm.
I try not to argue if somebody's wrong, other than to point where critical thinking is, and not my opinion.
Would you define yourself as a rationalist in that sense?
Uh I I like to think that I'm rational. I think what I'm doing is rational. If there are entailments or baggage on rationalist saying that I have to reject strongly some other position, I'm not sure about that part.
No worries. I was just kind of
Mhm.
wondering because you
It
this
sounds like a
idea.
philosophical term, and usually those have really strong walls.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
Mhm.
But what you reminded me of the old days when that was their primary concern, right?
Mm,
They were very
okay.
much concerned with this, like, okay, well, we only want to believe in like reason, and reason was kind of the leading ethic, right? Even for a lot of the philosophers, the old philosophers, kind of the leading ethic.
Mhm. Okay.
Hey, and
Yeah.
I think I saw the thumbs up there that we got both of them
Yes.
going. So
Yes, Mighty Conversations and several others have confirmed that we are indeed streaming on both channels. Woot!
awesome.
What's your channel about?
So my channel is called Curious Christianity on YouTube, and I actually I'm very much pro having good, healthy conversations. And now I will probably come at it from a little bit of a different angle than you, because I believe that it's crucial, and I think that I have that freedom to have
Mhm.
very liberating, free conversations. Once I have found kind of my foundational piece, my foundation in Christ, and my
Mhm.
faith in Christ, and then I feel like I have a very solid foundation from which I'm liberated to talk about the Bible openly.
Mhm.
I'm liberated to talk about God or philosophical questions or tough questions. And
Mhm.
so I'm very open to exploring large bits about Christianity and the Bible with Christians that many others would consider heretics and would not be allowed in the church. So I have a lot of those conversations. And
Worse, I'm an apostate.
yeah. Well, in some places I'd probably be one too, but that's
Mm.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah, we're all an apostate from somebody. We all
Yeah.
change
Now,
our mind at least a little.
yeah. But I think that that's how a lot of great discoveries were found, was through exploring and being willing to take some risks. Of course, I
Mhm.
probably have boundaries at some point,
Sure.
but I think that it's really been really, really enjoyable. And I'm a curious fellow, hence the squirrel.
If we push my boundaries too far, I hope that I will gracefully dismount and depart before I embarrass myself or anybody who I might be speaking in front of or for or something.
Yeah, yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been doing? So, you're this ambassador for critical thinking,
Yes.
and I sort of am as well. We're just kind of doing it in different arenas, sort of. Okay.
Street
Oh
epistemology
my goodness, you've
is
got a street epistemology shirt.
yes, I do. I wear it as a uniform when I'm doing this sort of thing. So it's a little bit like that Temple Grandin thing of programming myself to I needed to be restrained in this range of behavior.
Mhm.
And donning my street epistemology shirt is a really good reminder of that.
So it seems to me like you have actually a lot of experience with street epistemology. How long have you been in that arena?
Publicly since the beginning of 20, when I started practicing doing
That's not
with
long at
Reed.
all.
Yeah, not hardly at all. It was just a few months before the pandemic really hit that I
Wow.
started practicing in public with Reed. I had been on my own learning from Reed and Anthony and Ty a lot in for 2 or 3 years prior to that. So there was some serious study to get up to that level, and then my public stuff started just 3 years.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I brought a few things to the table. I'd been a teacher, I'd been a public speaker, I'd been a several other things. So some of the polish that you might see, if you see any polish, is stuff I brought in, maybe.
Right. Yeah. What kind of teacher were you, if you don't mind?
Lots of things. Corporate software,
Okay.
and Photoshop, photography. Let's see. That's the bulk. Technical, like software kind of things.
Technical software. Well, yeah, you're way ahead of me in that category. Afraid those are not areas that I'm an expert in.
And now I'm a teacher of a recipe for exploring critical thinking. I teach people how to do SE conversation.
Yeah,
that counts too.
So I think it's interesting, actually. I've actually been a teacher in many categories for a while as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I actually share something very much in common in that regard.
What subjects do you like to teach?
I teach martial arts.
Ooh, how balancing thing.
Yeah, so I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
And I've taught several guys how to fight and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, also then I teach dance. I love to teach salsa and bachata, a lot of Latin social dances. So it's a lot of fun.
I should have mentioned the physical teaching. I, for some reason, had that in a different category. I did and do actually teach juggling.
Yes. Oh, that's right. You teach juggling.
The name juggling lessons came from when I was teaching juggling at Renaissance Fair on the weekends.
Okay, Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, and so that's where the email came from and the handle, and became a public persona for my teaching stuff.
Gotcha.
Going balls.
Yeah. Well, so I actually I taught improv for a year as well.
Love me some improv. Yes.
It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So now I also understand that you actually had a religious background. Is that right?
Yes. I grew up in a fundamentalist missionary school, very right wing. I look back at them and say, very racist. But that's from my view now, compared to the world around them, barely. Let's see what else.
I thought you were just using like a demon voice to kind of.
Oh yes, that would be judgment voice. Very racist.
Oh, judgment.
I'm giving judgment to that they were very racist. Anyway, and again, acknowledging that for the time they were almost normal. And let's see, very young Earth, big fans of Dino, Kent Hovind. My father preached from Kent Hovind's books from the pulpit.
Yep, I'm quite familiar with the good old Dr. Dino. So
yeah. So that was kind of my worldview till 20 somethings, and then I was in a STEM field, so got a whole lot of critical thinking, and that pushed me to old Earth pretty darn quick. I had an old Earth base at least because I couldn't defend anything else, and that pushed me into a very liberal Christianity through my 30s. And in 2000, I found Judaism, and I found a cluster of people whose expressed ethics, the way they actually lived their life, the way they were fair and kind to people, and the way that they said how they should know how to do those things was so much better that I thought they, on a moral ground, they have the better answer. So I'm gonna learn their religion. Now, it didn't take that much of a change. I didn't have to stop believing in Yahweh. I just have to stop believing in the specialness of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And they also didn't have an afterlife belief. So it really let me loose from hell and, well, even heaven.
So
'Cause
was this like a particular brand of Judaism?
particular brand, it's pretty
Just wondering.
mainstream for at least, West Coast of America. You might consider it to be the Reformed or somewhat liberal sects of
Okay.
Judaism, not the black hats, not the Hasids, not the Talmudic literalists and
Mm-hmm.
like that, but like in the sense that mainstream Christianity might be a bit of a progressive Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not in the center. So yeah, it was a lefty, a loosey goosey lefty kind of Judaism. Sure.
Now, you kind of said that when you got into the STEM fields, that kind of led you into more liberal or progressive Christianity. Is that what I heard, or did I misunderstand that?
The STEM fields made me learn epistemology better,
Okay.
and
Yep.
epistemology then ruined young Earth for me.
Yeah, I got that part.
Yeah, that was the shift. That
Is
learning
that
the
what
new
we're
science.
considering progressive? Older?
No, no.
Okay.
No, no, you were asking about my Judaism. Was it the standard Judaism? And I'm going to say
Yeah,
that
yeah,
my
yeah.
Judaism was lefty progressive for Jews in general, but only a little.
But I felt like
Uh,
how,
I
how
did
long?
I did move from a very conservative Christianity through to a more liberal Christianity, and that happened after I let go of young Earth. Once I let go of young Earth and embraced old Earth and started to redefine God and redefine God's relationship and everything else, I moved very much from a conservative to a more liberal Christianity, even one that could stand gay people.
Okay, like
Yeah, my politics shifted.
was there something in particular that made that change? It just seems like I'm missing part of the story because you're just. It
Oh,
felt like it's like, oh, I gave up young Earth creationism, and all of a sudden I came out
right. I
totally
was
new. So
I
I
was very
yeah,
locked into a box,
yes, I got it.
and nothing
Box.
could get me past those barriers. And then the young Earth fell because science. Once young Earth fell, the dam broke here and here and here and here and here and here and here, and then the morality came over, and I became a very liberal Christian in my 30s.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was kind of your belief system back then. It was a glass floor, right?
Okay,
And
sure.
once it kind of cracked, and then it cracked a
Yeah,
little more, and then once it
there was
finally
one big
shattered,
crumble. Yeah. Now
everything just.
the thing that never crumbled was moral, except I stopped believing that the Christians knew what the moral teaching properly was. Eventually,
Mhm.
that took years.
Okay, so it was like a process.
It was a very much long process,
Gotcha,
and
gotcha.
I only let go of theism in like 07, 08 when in my study in Judaism I just all the rest of everything just crumbled over time.
There has to be like at least a little bit of a story about
Oh
that.
sure. In 2004, I started doing all the books open with the original Hebrew and the translations and everything.
Mhm,
A big important study of the Pentateuch, starting from Genesis forward,
mhm.
the first 5 books of the Bible.
Yep.
And Exodus and Numbers and Leviticus were a real slog. I don't mean because they were boring, but because morally, when you actually look at it, it's horrific. It's absolutely difficult to imagine how this is the good thing. Um, and I get then to Deuteronomy and Deuteronomy 4:2, in a book that adds 2/3 to the law, says, "The law is fixed; you shall not add anything to the law." And that irony broke my faith in any scriptural authority, especially understanding the origins of Deuteronomy. So my scriptural authority pillar dropped, and within months, I no longer believed in any supernatural being. That was the last major pillar holding up the tent, was scriptural authority for me.
Interesting.
And my study led me to just, I no longer could believe that this book could be right.
Because I'm not sure. I maybe I'm just missing the connection here. Because of what?
A book that adds 2/3 to the law starts with,
Mm-hmm.
the law is complete. Thou shalt not ever add anything to the law. By the way, everything that we're giving to you right now was implied or discovered and retroacted. And it's obvious even in the text.
And that made you believe that God doesn't exist?
That made me believe that that scripture could not be correct.
I
Once,
understand.
once
Yeah.
that scripture could not be correct, anything that used the reason, because this scripture says it's true, therefore it's true, becomes into question. And if I can't say it's true for any other reason, it stops being importantly true and goes to underdetermined. Can't tell whether it's true or false. Can't make a choice.
So let me ask you a different question,
Yes.
Dali. You seem like an all or nothing kind of person.
Mm-mm.
Is that?
No, very
Well,
much the other way. Now, maybe in terms of like my theistic beliefs, I was, yes.
okay.
But
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
I am all about the grayscale. I see
Well,
almost
today
nothing.
you are.
You're right. I may not have good insight as to how I thought in that day through my today's lens of memory.
I mean, because the few different major transformations that you felt like really made major shifts for you. What you gave as the examples,
Yeah.
were basically you held it as like, okay, this is what it is. It's
Yep.
this huge monolithic deal, and it's just like this. And then someone cracked that scale
Yeah.
and then
The first
shattered it.
pillar was young Earth.
Yes,
There were
first one was young
dozens
Earth.
of pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Young Earth. And in 2000, the last pillar came down. Scriptural
Mm-hmm.
authority.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then that just crumbled the rest of your theistic beliefs altogether.
Yep. Everything else
Gotcha.
fell into doubt. And as soon as doubt came in, and I actually then asked each question, each time I came up with the answer, lean no.
What lean no towards what? The
Well,
questions of which
like
questions?
I could be like really certain no, or probably sure, high confidence no, high confidence yes, lean
Mhm.
no, lean yes. And every time I asked the question, it no longer was high confidence yes, it was lean no.
Why?
Because I would ask the question and take away that one reason which I had disqualified. And if
Mhm.
I couldn't find any positive reasons to believe a thing anymore
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't think
yeah.
were fallacies, then I would no longer believe that thing. And that's involuntary. That's what I can't just choose to believe a thing if I look at all the reasons I have and I don't think any of them are good. And this happens when I find one reason that is for it, and then I go, wow, that reason I have discovered, I have decided is a fallacy. I've put it in a new bucket. Now I'm going to review, and those things that it's connected to, I review, and if they don't have other reasons, fallacy bucket.
Okay, so I have a different question for you that
Mhm.
I relatively asked Pearson Matt when I spoke to him
Okay.
the other day.
Yeah, I saw that on my feed. I haven't actually had the hour and a half to listen to it.
Well, you should see it. They're amazing.
Well,
So,
it's on my list.
um, would you say at the time, and I don't care, you can pick any of those
Right.
times in the
Sure.
past, any of those times in the past that
Uh-huh.
you had some sort of personal relationship with God?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime before 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So before then, so you would say that, yeah, there was some sort of relationship with God.
Yes.
And ultimately, is your conclusion that you were just delusional, or? What was your conclusion? I'm not really sure. How do you go back and reevaluate those moments? And I guess
Let me
perhaps
put a pin
I
in
don't mean
this
to.
moment. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, forgive me for
No, I don't
using
mind.
for using. Yeah.
I don't mind at all. If I'm gonna say delusional, I'll wanna define it really well, so I'm gonna avoid the term until I define it later. But I'm gonna say, I believe that the thing that I was having was a relationship with a model that I was building in my own mind.
Okay. Yep.
And if when I came to recognize that this was a projected notion of God that I was reacting to, a mental model of God that I was interacting with, then and didn't have an external instantiation, it was still useful. Interestingly enough, I could still ask this thing, "What's your moral stance on something?" And I could get an answer, and I could get an answer with a reference.
Hmm.
The God answering my questions still worked,
Hmm.
even though
You just lost every other foundation, right?
I
Is
just
that what you're
didn't
saying?
I didn't believe that this was something that wasn't just a mental model.
Hmm.
I believed that this was something my own brain was creating.
Yeah. So there wasn't anything external to you.
Right, the with this particular mental model, it never knows anything I couldn't know.
Hmm.
It doesn't have access to information that would be trivial available to you because 'cause you're in a different place and I can't see the camera, but, and yeah, whereas if this were a globally instantiated interactive thing, it it would have that access to
Okay.
information that I can't trivially see, and th that test constantly failed. It never had information I didn't already have. It's like trying to read a book in a dream.
I got you. I got you. So one other question about kind of that as far as your history goes.
Yes.
What did you say it was that kind of moved you to Judaism as a way away
It
from
was,
Christian?
I saw a moral community. I saw a community that expressed its morals in very clear
Mhm.
terms
Gotcha.
and, uh, gave me, chapter and verse references for how I could look it up and why they agreed on this particular instantiation of the moral, and I saw how they actually implemented it, and how well they followed their stated morals was 10 times better than what I was familiar with Christians,
Hmm.
and the morals themselves were much more intuitively reasonable to me. They had reasonable exceptions that were taken into account and were much less black and white. They were much more nuanced. Uh, for every major rule, there were valid reasons why you might break that rule,
Hmm.
and so on. So there was clarity of things, and then the also the anyway. So the way they dealt with the ethics was the thing that got my attention, and that's why I said they might be more right because their morality and their actual implementation of their religious morality is more right, and that was one of my tests for which division of religion is probably more right.
The one thing I will agree with you about that is that I do think it is a tremendous condemnation on Christians across the country,
Yeah, yeah. I'm not one
right?
to poke at Christians, but in general, I grew up with a particular set of them.
Well,
I'll poke at them.
what even when I look at what Jesus says, right? He
Mhm,
says, "You will know them by your love for one another," right?
mhm.
And pretty much your argument was, well, I saw it over there, but I didn't see it over here, right?
I saw it much better over there here than
Yes.
than here. 10 to 1, 10 to 1 better.
Hmm.
Not a close race.
So for all the Christians out there, please love each other.
Mhm.
Please.
Please do.
Dolly said so.
Mhm,
But you know what? More importantly, Jesus said so.
mhm. Jesus did say
And
so.
I do think I think that this matters tremendously a lot. That I think is one of the biggest problems for a lot of people that I've seen leave the church as well
Mhm.
is they've left because you know what? They were not getting love, acceptance, connection inside the church.
Yeah.
And when somebody else came along and offered that in a better way that they were not able to get inside of Christianity, they said,
Mhm.
"Yep, I'm taking that road because it's way more attractive."
I had that in spades in the temple. that thing that you that inclusive, that love, that community, that all that positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yum. Thank you. Chef's kiss. And that was not withdrawn until I externalized my disbelief,
Mm-hmm.
and that I was
So you know what? Now please forgive me because
Mhm.
this will sound terrible because it's just bad timing.
Fine.
but
I'm not
but
sensitive about it. It's
no, no,
been a
no. Well,
long
this
time.
part, right? This is what I see. Like a lot of people, like why do people join cults? Right? Everyone always, why do people join
Mm,
cults?
mhm, mhm.
And it's one of those things, right? When you find someone who's alone and isolated and doesn't have anyone who cares about them, and the cult comes along and they're like, we'll love you, we'll make you a part of our family, we'll make you a part of
Yeah.
our community.
Yep.
And it's addictive because you know what? Every human is meant to live in community. Every human is meant to live in relationships with other people, and
Mm,
they're meant to be able to share their heart, to connect with other human beings. And I think that that's something that lots of people, especially millennials today, they're looking for authentic fellowship, right? They're looking for authentic connection. And if they don't find that in church, if they do feel like they're just talking to walls, or they're talking to their dad who is more distant than the people on the internet,
yes.
then I understand why they end up getting there.
We
And
we reflect that in our language. We don't talk so much about the atheist position or the atheist school of thought. We talk about the atheist community. We talk about the humanist or the secularist community. Uh, and what we mean is that there's more than just this one discussion going on. There's a group of like-minded people who are getting together to intersupport and do something, related to a common hobby. Maybe it's the bowling community. It doesn't have to be about a particular thing. But the thing those communities have in common is people trying to find ways to support each other getting to each other's goals.
yeah, and so those communities are centered around some sort of
Yeah,
ideological belief, and then they have something to focus on, and they share those and
right.
live in
Or
community. And
bowling, which might have no ideology at all.
yeah, yeah, it might not, but it's centered around some sort of theme, right?
There's some kind of theme, yeah. And
Yeah,
with critical thinking, there might be an ideology to it. Maybe a stoicism, maybe a preference for rational thought, or a preference for engaging rational discourse, something like that.
yeah, or street
Maybe that's the
epistemology today,
ideology.
right? As you
Yeah,
guys
street
have kind of
epistemology
coined
is
this phrase.
one of those things. Yeah, definitely. I don't want to just say the street epistemology community because that's too exclusive. Critical
Yeah,
thinking
yeah, yeah.
community is a much bigger umbrella.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
Street epistemology is just one recipe in critical thinking.
I get you.
Hmm.
Yeah, so hmm, I guess I would say this. I I know you don't need some sort of apology, but I do. I feel bad on behalf of Christianity, on behalf of
Oh,
Christ, for all of the people that they are completely left out. And I have a phrase and a saying. I say, cliques are great.
hmm,
Everyone should be a part of one.
hmm,
Cliques
yeah.
are only
Well, they're part
bad
of circle.
things, right? When somebody's left out, right?
Hmm.
That's the difficulty. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I don't want to monopolize the whole thing here. So this is your show too.
Okay, no problem. So, is there? Let's see. We talked about my history and my deconversion. We had also, you had asked earlier if I was comfortable speaking about trans issues, and my answer is yes. If you bring it up, I don't want to make it. It's such a personal soapbox. I don't want to make my SE stuff about it. And you're welcome to, if that's something that, if queer or trans is something that matters to you.
Okay, we can talk about that. I know that a lot of other people, and this is something I wanted anyway for like my
Mhm.
audience is I think they would love to be able to hear all of your rationales and your thoughts on like how it works or goes and stuff like this. So
Mhm.
I think there's a series of questions that people would have, and you're
Probably.
familiar with people being in echo chambers, right?
Yes.
Well, guess what? Some of the other people, they're still in echo chambers, so
Sure.
they don't actually
A
meet
strong
anyone
echo
else.
chamber on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't actually meet people who even believe the opposition, right?
Okay.
And so therefore they would want to know. So I will be somewhat an ambassador, perhaps, to ask you some questions. I
Excellent.
think I guess would
I
be
hope
one
so.
way to
Yeah.
go. You know?
So let me just preface by saying I'm not
Yeah,
speaking for the community.
sure.
I am personally queer. I am not personally trans, and for some
Okay.
people that matters. And I'm going to be speaking about how I want my society to deal with people in my society, and so I'm qualified to talk about that.
Yep.
Um, let's see. That's enough.
Okay. Well, here's the first question. All right. What does it mean to be queer?
Queer, I think, is the opt-in term for identifying as a sexual minority. We have a series of sexual expectations in our society. In different societies around the world, there's a different set of those things which are like normalized versus not.
Okay.
And, and if things that are not completely normalized in your society are part of your expression and what you want to know, have people know about you,
Mhm.
uh, uh, then that queer is a good umbrella term for that.
So you would say then that the most queer minority is the virgins, right? They're the sexual minorities in the country.
Hmm.
You're just like, I'm not even. Hmm.
No, I think virginity is normalized. I don't mean how common it is. I mean whether it's socially normalized, whether it's socially acceptable and considered a positive thing versus um, pushed out. But anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm
You're fine. You're fine.
overthinking it and explaining a joke. Move on.
No worries. No worries. Um, so, okay, because I would say that, like, I think a lot of people, they would just associate queer with gay, and then just
Sure.
it doesn't
Gay
really
is a
go any
prominent
further.
part of queer. Would you say gay is the same as lesbian?
Um, I would say, I mean, for the most part, yeah, that's how I've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I
for the
think it's
most
true
part,
for
most
the
people,
chicken. I think lesbians are gay, and gays are not always lesbians because
that's right.
lesbian means the female version of it, and gay kind of means
Yes.
both. But if you're making a distinction, that's the guy part. But these aren't important distinctions.
Yeah.
If you're just saying, "I'll believe you if you tell me that you are something that you want
Hmm.
me to know about you," I don't have to worry about whether you fit my category for that.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So, but the way you described it originally, queer
yeah,
could be different from gay. Is that correct?
absolutely. Queer is much more than gay.
Yeah, it's much
Queer,
more broad.
I
It's a
could
broad
be
scope.
I could be completely heterosexual and maybe poly, not monogamous.
Hmm. And
And
you would consider that queer?
the queer community does.
Poly?
Yes, non-monogamy.
Polyamorous?
Yeah,
Okay.
non-monogamy is a sexual minority.
I just think that's weird. We just used to call them players back in the day. I don't know.
Poly is distinct from players.
Yeah,
Poly,
it is technically
knows,
distinct. I'm aware. I have.
everybody knows, and cheating is about lying about it, not about that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
distinction in the same sense as like you're cheating or you're not cheating. It's
yeah. It's the world is definitely opened up to many
Mhm.
significant different distinctions here.
Yeah, and
Okay.
apparently it's mainstream normal to cheat and mainstream abnormal to not cheat if you're having multiple partners.
Yes.
Anyway, that's
Hmm.
just an irony. Please continue.
No, it is. It is
So
right.
queer,
It.
yeah, my answer is that queer deals with sexual minorities in general, and gay is a prominent wedge in that.
So then, would we just, in a sense, you would just put LGBTQ plus under almost the
Yeah,
queer umbrella?
this is my personal thing. I really hate the letters because they are trying to be inclusive and by effect are exclusive and forcing people to want to add their letter to a thing. And it's a constantly moving goalpost. So I actually prefer like queer. Let's just grab a name, like it, own it. Stop trying to be so specific, especially if you're asking your opposition to use a name that you keep changing every 6 months.
What about moving the goalposts bothers you?
It's moving the goalposts that you're asking for in public. You're not really
Mhm,
changing out your own thing, but you're saying, and now all of you have to acknowledge this new reality and this new reality and this
mhm.
new reality. It's message changing.
Yes. Yes, it
And
is.
and I think that's a bad strategy. Now, I don't think they're wrong in their goals. I think they're using a bad strategy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, would you also say then you are for or against the, I'll just say, the pronoun war, for lack of a better term? Because that's, to me, kind of what you're talking about, right? So
Sure, sure. Yeah,
we've got all
I've
these
got
titles,
a
and now
mixed
we've
bag
got
about the
person
pronoun thing.
tense.
I
Okay.
can see both sides, and so let me try steel manning each side of the pronoun thing.
Okay.
On one side, I want to be nice, especially to my friends. And if it helps for somebody for me to refer to them in whatever way they like, would they like doctor in front of their name? I don't need to see a diploma. I don't have to be even convinced it's real. If you want to be called Dr. Adam, Dr. Adam. Okay? I'll be nice. I won't fight you on it,
Okay.
whether I agree or not. So if you ask for a pronoun, I'll try to remember it. And if I remember that it's weird and I can't remember it, I'm going to say they, and you're going to forgive me. And whatever. And this pronoun thing is also weird because in a conversation with just you and me, our pronouns couldn't almost ever come up. How you can't speak of me in the third person if I'm in the room and you're not speaking to somebody else. Now, if the third person and you're speaking to them about me, you could say he does. Now, when my pronoun finally comes up, so the first time I hear my pronoun is I have to bring a third person into the room, and I'm telling you how to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my steel man of the forced speech thing. Now I'm telling you how to talk to your friend in describing me.
Yep.
And okay, that's a little bit weird. So I'm stuck between the our society doesn't really like people to swing our fist that much into your speech. Okay. I want to give you a whole bunch of free speech. And if I'm telling you how to speak about me to somebody else, that's really pushing it. But please be nice.
See, to me, actually, I think I find it particularly strange because pronouns to me were something that describes something about you.
Yep.
But
Yes.
what everyone else is talking about, these remind me more of adjectives, not pronouns.
Does that change anything? Whether I call it a pronoun or an adjective?
To me, it does. Because to me,
Okay,
pronouns
I'm
are
not sure how it changes the question of whether we should be nice or whether we should ask people to use certain words. By
no.
calling them pronouns or adjectives, I don't think changes any of the arguments.
I mean, maybe not essentially for you and stuff, but to me, like when people are asking to be called something that's not inside of any traditional pronouns such as Z or Zer or other things like this,
Okay.
then it's like, well, to me, that sounds like it's outside of the realm of pronouns. We're just changed what pronouns mean, right? I thought pronoun had a meaning in the past, but to me, it's not
Pronoun
super clear what
pronoun
it was.
is a class shortening for a noun. Like the word you
Mm-hmm.
is the universal pronoun,
Yeah,
and you is not it.
true.
You implies
Exactly.
personhood.
Right.
Now, but everybody uses the you, and that is a pronoun. But is it one of your pronouns? No. So is it a category? Maybe. Okay. Language is funny that way.
But yeah,
My
when did we
understanding
personalize pronouns?
my understanding of the kind of pronouns that we mean are those that refer to a proper noun, a person with a name,
Mm-hmm.
something with personhood. He, him, she, her, they, them, and any variation that you want to make that makes reference to them, uh, often grabbed from the German, because German have like 7 of them. Uh, and so it's easy to grab, and we borrow from other languages all the time. Anyway, not
Right.
super important.
But weren't all pronouns kind of universal then?
No, because the pronouns contain a bit of data that is now
Mm-hmm.
open to question, and that is the gender of the person. What if I had a pronoun that instead of referring to your gender, referred to your status? You're either a serf, a middle person, or royalty, and that pronoun was the thing I needed to use.
Yeah, I'm not too aware of any of those pronouns.
I'm making up, something that we could see in our language, where I could refer to their highness over
Mm-hmm.
here, or I could refer to their lowness over there. And that would be like a pronoun in the sense that it's a placeholder for a general class is the identifier.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I consider those pronouns. To me, it's again just shifting the
Fine.
boundary of what I consider pronoun to mean. And
Okay.
so it's like, yeah, we could talk about classes. We could talk about classes or titles or
Right.
references, but I consider all of those
These things
outside of
these things only
pronouns.
matter when you actually want to treat the people differently. If I know that, so imagine I've got a friend over here and I'm
Hmm.
going to tell you some things about them. They are alive. They are currently breathing.
Hmm.
They're hypothetical, but run with me.
Okay, so they're not
They,
breathing.
no,
No,
they,
just get it.
right. But in the hypothetical, my Schrodinger's cat is still alive. Anyway, they are adults, which is to say that my society thinks they have lived long enough since birth to be called an adult, and they are a human. Now, if that's all you know about them, what more information would you like before you understand which rules you would like them to have to abide in your society?
To me, whatever those rules are, they're universal to the people.
Good. Then you don't need to care about whether they have a particular pronoun that tells you whether they're a man or a woman, or anything in between if they care to use another word for it.
It depends if I get punished if I use the incorrect one.
Okay, so you would like freedom from punishment from error or perhaps intentional misrepresentation of what their subjective claim is.
Well, because to me, their subjective claim is impossible for me to know.
Does it
Um,
matter?
well, again, if I'm going to be punished for it, it does seem like it matters. It seems like it has to have some sort of
Okay.
external referent in society, right?
So I would like to tell you, I would like you to just trust me that I am a non-criminal. That's going to be part of my identity. I am the non-criminal Dali.
Right. And you have to tell me that for me to know,
Yeah,
right?
I'm telling you that I am the non-criminal Dali. Now,
But
if
again,
you
this
were
is
to
third.
disagree with that part of it, you would actually be accusing me of being a criminal, and that wouldn't be nice. And I might be able to sue you for defamation. Would
but
you
now,
agree that if you want to treat me differently because now I'm a criminal, that
but,
now it matters and I could sue you for it?
but do I have to treat you differently on the
Mhm.
basis of the pronoun you give yourself?
No, I don't want you to treat me differently at all. I want you to respect that I don't have to tell you the information that you desperately want to know about my objective status for sex.
So if you tell me,
It's my
let's
privacy.
just let's just say we have a woman, okay? And she identifies as a woman, okay?
Hold on. You just introduced your own terms. Let me see if I can give it back to you in a way that does not
Okay.
confuse the thing. You have an adult human whose
Mhm.
sex would allow them probably to mother a child during their lifetime. They are the kind of human that can mother a child during their lifetime. Probably.
This is definitely getting convoluted quickly.
It's not
So,
convoluted at all, I don't think. I think I just described exactly the thing you said in the long form. They're adult, they're
okay.
human, and they
Yeah.
are the kind of human that could do the mothering part, which is to say, gestate and become impregnated and gestate, take an egg to a baby
Okay.
sometime in their lifetime. They maybe haven't
Okay.
done it yet.
Yes.
Maybe they're past the point where they could have done it and they hadn't, but still
Mhm.
they could have. And that was, I think, what you mean by woman the first time.
Okay, let's say that that's the case.
Do you agree that that definition is what you meant by woman in the adjective sense?
For all intensive purposes, sure.
Good. Now, there's the other side where you said woman in the subjective identity sense, which
Okay.
is a person who wishes you to treat them in all ways society relevantly as woman whenever you make a distinction of woman versus not woman.
Repeat that.
If I say I'm a woman,
Hmm.
it's because I want you to treat me in the category of woman for all of those societal
There we
interactions.
go. So this is what I want to talk about,
Hmm.
right? Should you expect someone to treat you differently on the basis of your pronouns?
Yes.
Okay. So you are asking everyone else to treat you a particular way based on your
I'm
own
asking you
identity.
to treat me the way that you treat women.
But
If that's different than the way you treat men, then
Should
I want
should
you to change your behavior to treat me like a woman. If
should
you
we
do not
treat
treat me different, if you don't treat men and women differently, there's no obligation for you to anything.
why not? Don't they want to be treated how they want to be treated? And that's what they're
No, I'm
asking?
asking you to treat me according to according to how you follow society's rules for treating women.
But what
In the
if
same
I
way.
don't follow society's rules for how society treats women?
Well, then society is going to look side-eye at you, and that'll get worked out.
They will look side-eyed at you, sure,
No, they
right?
will look side-eye at you if you
Yeah.
treat women in a way that's different, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
clear with
Yeah,
you there.
yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Mhm.
Okay. Why?
Why
Why are they
does
going to look
why does
side-eyed at
why
me if I
because
don't act according to their norms?
you because you're not acting according to their norms, they give side eye. That's how society works.
But isn't that the whole
Society,
point of the queer community is that you
it's the
shouldn't
whole that's the point of all of society is to influence and conform each other's actions to a common standard of behavior that we can all come to an agreement and a peaceful coexistence on, okay?
Okay. Mhm.
And when somebody does not follow our norms, whether our norms are reasonable or not, our
Mhm.
norms might be completely arbitrary and utter bullshit. But
Yep.
still, when we recognize that somebody's not acting to society's norms, we give them the side eye, at least at first. Violence might come. Okay. I'm not saying
Okay.
there's violence, but side eye at least at the beginning. You're like, hey, wait a minute. Okay.
Mhm.
So you see what I mean?
Mhm.
That's how society operates, by that kind of zealotry.
So which way should society be?
Society is that way. Should it be that way? Society seems to be operating. It seems to be functional. Could it be better? Probably. I'm not sure how. Should it be that way? According to its own goals, yes. If society's goals are to be understood as finding a compromise for peaceful coexistence and conforming each other's behaviors to something we can all tolerate and live through.
So
Try
which
it.
way should it be?
Which way should it be?
Yeah.
What are my choices?
I don't
The
know.
way
I
it is now
imagine
versus
there's a
not.
lot of choices, but I
Can
think
you
that one
describe
of
like the way it is now, the way society works now versus and what's the alternative?
I don't know because there are so many alternatives, right? I mean,
Right, that's one.
societies have yeah, I
You're
mean there
asking
could
me
be
to
a
choose
large
between. I need to see what the other one is so that I could say, maybe yours is slightly better in this way, or wow, that really
yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't exactly have like, okay, this is the list of all of the possible
I don't
ways
need
that
all of them.
society
I
should
need
be.
one. You asked me a question to compare. I need a comparator.
No, I didn't really ask for a
You
comparison
said, "How should it
necessarily.
be?"
That's right.
I
How should
said
it
I
be?
said, "It is. It might be better. I'm not exactly sure how.
Mhm.
It's modifiable. It's very how should it be? Well, there's the way it is. There's
There's the
maybe
way
the
that
way
it
it
is.
has been, which is different.
Yeah,
There's the way it might be in the future if it goes along a trend. There's ways it might be in the future if
mhm.
you make a different choice about some of your goals.
That's right.
All of those are options.
There are lots and lots of options for sure.
Right.
Well, and there's as many options as we have pronouns in the world today, right?
Right, right. Now, if you're going to ask my preference, how should it be? I haven't thought out all of the ramifications, but if I get the magic wand and I go smack, and everybody says, you should treat everybody always the same in every area where you can, and in areas where you can't, you should at least try to be fair and
Okay.
kind.
Should we treat men and women differently?
Yes, in a few conditions. Like when I
Should,
go to the doctor and they want to do some particular kinds of medical testing,
Mhm.
it's going to matter.
It's gonna matter.
Okay, don't come at me with the speculum, baby.
That's a base reply right there, Dali.
Okay,
It's
so there's my example. Hopefully for comedy. Now our law says the 14th Amendment says that we shall not treat people differently at all, in general. And by the way, here's a whole big list of specific areas in which we will be looking that you not treat people differently. You're not allowed to separate them by this, and sex and gender's on that list. Race and heritage and parental, and there's a bunch of things. Okay, good things on that list. So our society already has a rule in our constitution says treat everybody the same. Okay, so legally we do, but we can't entirely. If I want to procreate with somebody, I am the kind of human that can sometime, potentially in my lifetime, father a child. which is to say, provide the little small gamete. That's my sex. Okay.
Okay.
And
Yep.
and I need to be very selective if I want to actually have a baby to only do sexual interactions to that goal with somebody who is the human that can mother a child. So now there are some situations in which I absolutely do need to know your sex
Okay.
if I'm going to achieve some particular goals. It's a very narrow set of goals. It has to do with intimate partnership and lifetime bondings and things like that, along with sexual preferences and the desire whether or not you want to procreate, all those things. But for that category, I have to understand before I can start negotiating that contract. But for anything else, none of my business. I don't need to know the shape of your bits until I'm in a question where, hey, I'd like to look at your bits.
So would you say that sex is binary then?
No, sex has 4 categories.
Okay.
The first one that I described, the second one that I described,
Yep.
the one who can do both, and the one that can do neither.
Okay. All
And I
right.
know personally people from both of those categories too.
Sure, sure, sure. Right.
I had a friend who was a natural hermaphrodite,
Mhm.
had one testicle functional and one ovary functional, and had to have abortions twice from self-impregnation, involuntary.
Very interesting
So
circumstance
it's
for
4.
sure.
There's 4 biological sexes amongst humans.
And you would say all of them are normal? Or would you say that there is no such
What
thing
does
as
normal mean?
normal? Yeah, that's what I would wonder.
These
What does
these
normal
first
mean?
2 are modal. They're bimodal. Each of them are very close to 50%. This one's like one of these is like 1 in 2,000. The other one's like 1 in 12,000. It's very rare. Is that normal?
Is there some sort of thing that should be the case?
Those 4 are the should be the case. That's what happens. That's what is. There's
Well,
no
some
should
people
because
are
there's no goal operating. That the system that it should be is the result of genetics and evolution trying to maximize the number of the population that can be in this useful functional category and minimize the population that is not able to have the babies right because they're messed up in some
when a
regard.
baby's born without legs, that's not normal.
It has nothing to do with this question
Why not?
because that's not part of this category set.
That's true. It's not part of that category set, but it's a part
You're
of
asking
normal.
whether this category set is normal, and I'm going to say,
Mhm.
what does normal mean? Because
Yes.
this is the optimization that evolution has come about with. And if you're going to say that there's even a goal to evolution, at most you
Mhm.
could say would be the thriving of the species through positive reproduction, therefore maximizing these 2 categories.
But it would seem like the one that can't reproduce is not evolutionary advantageous. So
It doesn't matter. You can't reduce the thing to 0. You can only minimize it. Because you're dealing with something where there's a natural tendency for us to fall into this both category very easily. And so there's things built into us to make our bodies choose one of these paths exclusively. Is
aren't,
that
aren't
normal? Or is this normal? Because without that being pushed into these paths, you'd fall into this one, which is reproductively unstable and involves cloning and kind of ruins the long-term thriving of the species. If you start having lots of clonal stuff, you end up hyper narrowing the genome and then extinction.
yeah, so there are lots of those problems, right? But
Yeah.
are you assuming that there's no goal for human beings? That human beings shouldn't be a certain way?
So, well, the goals that individuals humans have are different from the goals that a human society has, which are different from the goals that the genes that are in the gene pool of the humans have.
So are human bodies supposed to function a certain way or not really? There's no
Well,
inherent
each of those
supposed to.
3 would have a different goal set for how human bodies would ideally function. The individual would prefer that it would ideally function immortally, whereas the society says, no, we need you to pass on your goods to your offspring, and you need to be more important that you reproduce, and so therefore death. So the goals are different depending on
Individuals?
Goals of, well, individuals can have goals because we're conscious things.
Hmm. Yes.
Societies can have goals because we're a metaconscious thing.
Hmm.
And evolution can have goals because those are selected for by natural selection amongst the random of the shifting of the thing, and therefore you end up with uh, uh, evolution having the meta goal of thriving, if you will.
I don't see how evolution doesn't have any intentionality. Not like the first two. The first two have
Right, right.
intentionality,
I'm
right?
having to speak of it in very odd language to be able to call evolution having a goal, but
Hmm.
you will say that survival of those that don't get selected out is the goal of the genes. The selfish gene does have an apparent goal to reproduce and do so in as long a chain as possible, and in as stable a species as it can cooperate in.
I guess I don't see it as having a goal in any way
Okay,
in purely
that's totally
evolutionary
fine
terms.
because what I'm talking about is so abstract that I wouldn't expect it to make sense necessarily.
But in
So
that
I don't
case,
need to call it a goal at all.
okay,
I just
so
mean
there's
if
no
there's
goal by
direction to
evolution.
evolution,
There's
if there's
only
if there's a forcing direction, it's in the direction of stable genomes over time.
it's in the direction of stable genomes
Yeah, if
over
there's an
time.
arrow of the force of natural selection, it's towards stable genomes over time. Those things that are stable genomes over time, gene pools that are stable and well adapted, are the ones that are the longest lasting.
Yeah, that's just what happens, right? You're
Yeah,
just stating what happens.
yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to put an intentionality part of the language, but I am saying there's an arrow to time, there is an arrow to evolution. And that's as close as I can get to the term goal as people think of it in English.
So, if a human is born without legs or arms,
Okay, I'm aware of those.
is that I don't know. Well, I don't know if you don't use the term goals or visions, I would say that that is abnormal. They're
Normal to what? What does normal
that
mean?
human beings are meant to have arms and
Hmm.
legs.
Normal has a meant to. Normal
Mhm.
has a
Yep.
goal to it.
Yes. And I would say that that is true.
That okay. So all right. So by normal you mean so you have a baby who's born with no legs and no arms,
Yes.
and there and there's a goal or a failure to achieve a goal in that.
Yep.
Okay. Whose goal is it?
God's goal.
Oh, okay. You've introduced a new level that I hadn't been talking about.
I
So,
know, I know.
okay,
Yeah,
no,
I
it's
know.
fine.
But you're
Good. No,
forcing
no,
me into an
I'm
arena,
welcoming.
right?
I'm welcoming. So I had introduced three. Now you've introduced a fourth. You're saying that it's not one of society's goals,
That's right.
although it might also be. It totally might be. The society's goals is to minimize or mitigate the number of babies that are born without limbs. Would it be an individual parent's goal? Hell yes. Of course
Ye-
it would be. Okay. Uh,
well, that would be their desire, right?
it would goal, desire.
Oh,
Tell me
okay.
the
Let's
difference.
yeah, that's fine.
Is that close enough? Okay.
Sure. Close
Is
enough.
God's goal or desire that babies be born with their limbs?
Well,
Although,
yeah, the only I'm going to go ahead and make a distinction there. The only reason that I'm going to make a distinction there is
okay.
because parents don't have some sort of controlling factor as where they can decide, let's have a baby, but this one's going to have 4 legs and 6 arms.
Of their baby coming out looking different than most humans.
Okay,
They
Dali, I'm
take
so
that risk.
sorry, but you froze for
I
5
froze.
5 to
What?
several seconds, so I didn't
Okay.
catch any of that.
Par- Let me start again. Parents absolutely make that choice to take the risk of having a baby that is different from the normal presentation, perhaps in a way that harms them, by marrying close cousins. Humans often do that knowing that they are forcing that risk. So parents do have some choice in making babies as you described, maybe not being able to choose which thing,
Mhm.
but taking a substantial risk of a deviation from the norm.
So, but there is a norm though, right?
Well, the norm would be, in this case, like the statistical norm. If you looked at what is the prevalence in the overall community, or the people, and say how often do we have babies that are at least this incomplete, or whatever the word would be, uh, uh, incapacitated, and we would say, okay, that's the normal that we're hoping that you not make worse risk than that. And if somebody makes substantially worse risk than that, then they are opting in to having they are making a choice to have a higher probability of a baby with defects, birth defects. I'm not sure what words are the best used here.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah,
So let's go back a little bit. Yeah, because I think we've eventually kind of gotten derailed a little further
sorry.
away from things. No, no, we're good, we're good.
Mhm.
So okay, so let's say queer community, I guess, if that's the term that you prefer.
It's the one I
Um,
like, and I might be in a minority among some people. Some people still dislike the term queer because it has been a slur a lot.
yeah, actually, and
Yeah.
that's actually been one of the interesting things is that it used to be like a big slur, and now some people are like, oh, yeah, no, I want you prefer to use that, and it's like
Hmm.
confusing for others.
Yeah. Be confused.
So
Language is like that. It changes.
yeah,
Hmm.
so so let's skip straight to, I guess, some stuff more particular to the trans community, or however you
Okay.
want to label that one. I don't know if you have particular terms for that, or trans community is
I'll go with
acceptable.
whatever you have in mind because at this point it's descriptive, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, at
yeah,
least as long as we know what we're talking about. How's that?
yeah, yeah. And if you use a word that's a slur, I'll say, okay, I know who you're talking about, and that's a slur that I won't use. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. All right. So so I guess I would say this, right? If a person is born as a male sex, right?
Okay.
Is
So
it that work?
the person probably could father a child sometime in their life. Yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
right. Are we simply to is a per I don't know if somebody identifies, if they're born as a male sex, they can potentially father a child.
Yep.
What does it mean for them to shift to being a trans woman, or what does that mean?
That means that they would like society to treat them in the category of woman by all the means that society treats women different than men.
Okay, so people can feel as things that they weren't born as. So like if somebody decides is like, well, I
I didn't have
feel,
how they felt in my definition.
yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I know you didn't. I'm
Right.
shifting. I'm trying to move a little bit. Is that all
Right.
right?
Well,
Or no?
okay. Good. We can hang a lampshade on it. You've introduced how they feel as part of the chain, which is not part of my chain. So we'll have to put a pin in that if we come
Okay,
to
no,
a
no, no.
conclusion.
That's all right. If you have a different, so
How they feel
why?
is irrelevant to my question, other than as a reason why you should be nice to them.
So you don't think how they feel is relevant?
I think it's relevant to them, and I think it's relevant to why you should be nice to them, but it's not relevant to how you should treat them based upon their request. You do not have to know how they feel. You do not have to be convinced that they feel any particular certain way. A person can make a request that was within their freedom and not give a reason.
Okay,
Hmm.
sure. So so in your view, what is a trans woman?
A trans woman is somebody who is mostly male, probably, but whatever, and wants to be treated as a woman, and needs to put the word trans on there because some people know some information that makes them not a woman in everybody's eyes. So there's a difference between the woman in the subjective sense. They're subjectively a woman, but they're objectively not by that objective definition of sex. So trans woman says, I want you to look at my subjective definition and treat me that way. And unless you have a reason to pierce the veil of my privacy, leave it out. Unless you have a medical reason, or there's some reason whereby you actually need to know the shape of my bits, leave it out.
So in this case, if you have a
Mm-hmm.
trans woman,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't, let's just say they don't go through any surgeries. So in other words, they
Yeah,
remain.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
to my definitions. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you should just treat them as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean giving them all of the privileges of
Mm-hmm.
a woman
Yep.
or a man?
If you have privileges that you give only to women and not to men,
Mhm.
that's your silly. You shouldn't.
But
That's
doesn't
dumb.
society usually do that?
Only in the areas where they absolutely have to. Our rule is that by law, we are supposed to get away from that. We have had to enshrine it in law because we have such a tendency toward that. And we recognize it as an evil to treat people differently and to do tribalism and to separate people based upon classes, especially based upon things they don't have a choice about. So if our standard is to treat everybody the same, why do you care? Treat everybody the same. Now they're not asking for special privileges. No, but if you insist that you must have special privileges, then they want, bring it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it matters greatly for the safety of women, I guess.
Safety of women.
Yeah. So
Where's the
like if
unsafety?
yeah, for of course, I mean, I think of the first thing that I think of is the combatives for military and stuff, right? So
Sorry?
women being yeah, so for
Are
women
women
to be
allowed in
in
combat?
yeah, women in combat or whatever is much more as
Are
far as
women
I
in combat
understand.
equal to men in combat? Are they treated exactly the same, or are there special something somethings still?
Yeah, it's my understanding that there are special something somethings.
That's just wrong and stupid then, and fix that.
Yeah. Well, I certainly am
The
on the
need
side
the
of
need that my thing exposes a chink in the system where the system's doing it wrong, that's a win in my favor, not a reason against. Please continue.
yeah. So I think you have that scenario, and so I guess we would agree to some degree on that. That where yeah, you just want to hold the standard firm, right?
Yeah, especially in a legal sense.
In a legal sense.
In a legal sense, when it really comes down to how we really do make choices and enforce things on each other, we should absolutely have no discrimination based upon sex, gender, race, religion. The whole thing's on the list, plus a bunch of things we didn't add, and we might, because we recognize that they are problems and tendencies for us to still tribalize.
So concerning like I don't know, there's a lot of different societal things that we have. So for instance, different gendered sports.
Mm-hmm.
What's your view on that?
When the sports bodies separated into categories in order to provide more opportunities for competitors to be able to win against their peers, put it in a tiered system, they found a very convenient dividing line on sex. They found one that was approximately
Convenient.
close enough to be good enough to actually be kind of serviceable and useful. And now, because those terms now refer to gender and the language has changed, a lot of people want to say, you should use the gender meaning. And they say, wait, but that actually breaks our machine. And I say, great, no problem. The machine was already broken because sex wasn't actually the best way to make that distinction. The better way would be to take, weight and capability classes and highs and measure the people, okay, and say like under 6 foot basketball and under 5'10" basketball. If there's a very specific advantage to a particular body measurement in
Mhm.
a particular sport, you could just chunk that sport down into there. Or maybe you could do it by soccer. Then as you go through, if you are winning more than this, the next year you're in the next league up.
Yeah, but the
That's
distinction is
okay.
in men and women, right?
Well, when I'm in soccer, it's not important. What I'm saying in soccer, they have this thing of it. They don't measure you by age. They don't measure you by your weight. They don't measure you by this or that. Or if
Mhm.
you're winning a lot, by next year you'll go up into the next category, and that's also a perfectly fair way to keep people competing against people of their own peer in terms of their stuff, and allows everybody to reach championships. It serves the same need. and doesn't use these other discriminators. Some might argue it's more fair because it's actually based upon performance. Anyway, there's different ways to divvy up
Yeah,
sex.
so you kind of have like a, don't shoot me for saying it this way, okay? But you have a much more capitalistic approach to sports.
Yeah, I
As
kind of
like,
don't
it's
care
just
very
like,
much
hey,
about the game.
laissez-faire, everyone just gets to play the game and let it work out how
I'm
it
not talking
does.
about people having the opportunity. Yeah, and this is about serving the people who are playing the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I'm yes, there's an audience, maybe, okay, but if the people playing the sport want to have these divisions so that they can compete against each other, that's
Mm-hmm.
who I want to serve.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to serve the sports people.
But female biology will never become male biology. Everything
It
down
doesn't matter.
from
It doesn't matter. If you found that, for example, you split up your sport by weight class,
mm-hmm,
in the bottom end you'd have a lot more females, and in the top end you'd have a lot more males. Okay,
mm-hmm.
and you'd have this bell curve going through the middle of it. So good.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
that's
but
if that's a way to divide up the sport, it doesn't. There's nothing fundamental about a man and a woman competing head to head. That's the issue. It's only if that man, because
has
they
physical advantages.
has physical advantages, and
Yeah.
you can offset that by other means,
Like what? Offset it by what?
like finding that rare female who's the same as me for me to compete against.
Yeah, yeah, but her skin will be thinner. Her
Doesn't matter.
hips will be broader. Yeah, of
All we
course it
got to do,
matters.
all we got to do is look at the one or two or three measurements that are relevant to that particular sport. For long distance running, for example,
Mm-hmm.
there's no difference. When
Yeah,
you get
fast
long enough
twitch muscle
distance, it
fibers
doesn't
matter.
matter. But
Broadness of hips matter.
in shorter distance running, it matters. So now you can start measuring things and saying, okay, now we can have categories. But they don't have to be about sex. They don't have to be about reproductive capacity. That's actually
Well,
only
it's
a vague
yeah.
idea. That
It
doesn't actually work very well, these big overlapping bell curves. It's not a good measurement.
what's not a good measurement?
Sex is not a good measurement for divvying up fair classes in sports because there's too much overlap in the bell curves.
There is
There
a
are
lot of
too many
overlap.
of the best women that can beat the medium men. So
In what
if
I'm
you
not
upweight
aware of, I'm not aware of that in almost any sport. Hardly.
absolutely. If you look at the track, you look at everybody who's
Mm-hmm.
running, spread them out. The slowest dude is definitely slower than the fastest woman. So there's a big overlap.
To me,
Everybody in that
that's not a
overlap is what I just
significant.
said.
To me, that's not a significant overlap. If you're talking about the slowest guy competing with the fastest
I
woman,
didn't say competing with. I said if you just map out the group of people,
mm-hmm.
you're going to see that they are wildly overlapped. The fastest
wildly, I
woman
feel
might.
like is not a good descriptor. We
Never
can
mind.
disagree about that, but
But never mind.
yeah. I got you. So for you, as far as somebody transitioning from one to the other, it's mostly a matter of their personal preference,
Hmm?
and that we should respect and just be kind
It's their
toward
freedom.
is their freedom. Yeah,
It's their
yeah.
freedom. That's it. Everything else is trying to poke and decide whether or not their motivations are valid or righteous, which is none of your business. It's their freedom, like getting a tattoo,
Like
like
getting a
getting a
tattoo.
yeah, like getting a piercing, like wearing a particular set of clothes, like donning a particular red cap or blue one, or grabbing the label of your sports team or your political group or your religion and wearing a religious thing on your thing. I want you to treat me like a whatever this thing is. If you treat those different than anybody else, if there are privileges that you give to people wearing this symbol, I want that.
Donning a sports cap is not nearly the same. I mean, it's a significant difference here.
It depends on what neighborhood you're in. Around here, there are neighborhoods where donning a not Dodger cap might get you more than a side eye.
I believe that.
It's an extreme example. The point is, it's a category.
Yeah, these are
Those are
categories, but
freedoms.
one is demonstrably changing a human's physiology, and the other one
No,
is
no, we didn't say anything about surgery. I didn't say
so
anything about surgery. I don't need to have surgery in my thing. I'm not defending surgery. I'm not attacking surgery. I'm saying trans doesn't even need to bother with touching the person. You can be trans without ever seeing a scalpel. You can be trans without ever taking a pill.
let me go back. How would you define a trans person? Just for my recollection. Sorry.
Someone who says, I would like you to treat me as this particular sex, and I'm going to add the word trans because I think you might disagree that I'm naturally that sex. So I am transing to woman where you might disagree because you're a picky bastard, and I want you to treat me as woman.
What if the other person doesn't want to do that?
Then you don't want to do that. And if society doesn't like that, they give you the side eye. That's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I can want you to do something, and you can not want to do that. It's up to you to negotiate with society whether you find that compelling to you or not.
Right. And all of this, I guess, so you know that I'm a Christian, so I come from a particular background. But it's not really obvious to me, I guess, what would I look to understand your moral foundations? Like, so we're talking about all of these issues, and we're talking
My
about.
moral foundations aren't important to this question. I defined what trans was.
Okay,
Am I
yeah, yeah.
defending the moral? Did I make a moral argument?
No, you didn't make any
And my
moral
moral
arguments.
foundations aren't important to it. I'm so happy to have that discussion and defend my moral
Yeah,
foundations.
you would just put it in
I
a different
don't want to back
category.
it up. I just want to put it on the shelf as
Sure.
saying, this isn't relevant to the discussion we're having. Please continue.
Well, so talking about originally what we talked about, and I totally understand why some people don't associate the two, right? But to me, part of the reason that I was asking about norms. Is it normal for a baby to have 2 legs or 2 arms? Is
Yeah.
it normal or any
I
of
have
those
a perfect
things?
definition of norm for me to be able to make an evaluation, so I can't answer your question.
Sure, right?
Mhm.
But I'm just saying that I'm explaining why I was going down that road
Yeah,
is.
because you think norms should enforce people's behavior, and I can't even think that you can even define other than choosing the thing you want and deciding to call that norm as your reason. Therefore, it's circular, and I reject it.
Well, no. So I reject the idea that there's no direction that we should be headed. Like when we talked about which way should a society be, there is a way that things should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your preference.
Okay, so there isn't a way. There's no objective
I didn't say
way.
that. I say you say that there is a way, and it's your
Mhm.
preference. Do you
Is
agree
there
that
a way?
do you agree that it is your preference that it be the way that you think it should be?
Do I agree that it's my preference?
Yes. You think that
Well,
there's an
are,
objective
are
yes, and do you also prefer that that be the one we choose?
let me hold on. I'm trying to make sure I
I'm
understand your
trying to
question.
establish that you want this to be true, and I
Hmm.
disagree and think it is subjective and that you are wrong to call it objective, and when you do
Hmm.
call it objective, you're falling into the term normal, which you cannot define.
If you disagree with me, how can you disagree with me and not claim to some sort of objectivity?
I disagree that it is objective.
Right. So you're just saying that everyone's opinion is subjective. Is that right?
On this topic, I think it is a subjective opinion about how things should be, and we can go down the whole David Hume.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So is there a should for any of these
you
topics?
haven't defined one.
No, I haven't, but I'm just trying to clarify
Is
if
there a
there is
should?
one.
There are many. There are
If
many
there,
subjective shoulds.
of course, there are many subjective shoulds. Are there
Good.
any objective ones?
No.
Okay, well
See
then,
David
yeah,
Hume.
yeah. So there isn't any normal then, right?
Not by your definition. You haven't given me a definition of normal that's operative.
Yeah. No, because I'm saying like what would be normal would be something that would be the way things should be. That would be something that would be
Yeah,
good, right?
you're skipping over David Hume by defining your terms, by defining it into existence, and I'm unmoved.
I don't understand. You have to be more clear as to what you're
By not
referencing.
defining normal, you are sneaking in your should by saying normal tells us what we should do,
Yeah,
but
that
you
would be
won't
what
define
should
normal
would
and
be.
you won't tell us how to test for it. And so you're sneaking your should in past our sensors, and I am unmoved. I will not take it.
Yeah, I don't find this very compelling. I mean, the point to simply pointing to the idea that there is an objective answer. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I have to know what it is
I
to
don't
say that
expect
there
you to
is an
find this
objective
compelling.
answer.
I don't actually expect you to understand me. I do expect the audience to.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't see any reason why the audience would, but maybe some people would agree.
Right. You wouldn't because you can't understand the term, but I think the audience does.
You can't understand the term of what?
I don't think you understand how this meaning of objective and subjective works. I think you're a little stuck in your reasoning on the question of objective and subjective and should.
Okay, well, can you explain it?
No,
Okay, you can't explain it.
I'm not going to take the time to try to dig through. See David Hume.
I have read some of David Hume.
Good. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so to me, it seems like if you have a should, and you're saying that all shoulds are just subjective, right? Is that
David Hume says so, and I believe him.
Okay. So this is what we'd say. All shoulds are subjective. Then yeah, it doesn't really seem, I guess, relevant how I treat other human beings on this version.
Oh, you just went to solipsism because I reject your definition of normal.
No, I went to relativism.
Leap.
I went to relativism.
Yeah, that's a leap.
Well, I guess I don't see how. To me, it seems like a logical conclusion. Okay. So yeah. All right. So if we don't have any way to go around and there simply is subjective, then yes, I guess I see where you're coming from in this arena a little bit more. And obviously, I think it's part of the point that we come from two different arenas then,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if we fundamentally disagree that there's an objective or not subjective, and if you really do believe objective should, then I applaud you. You're doing heroic behavior. You're following your beliefs and you are extolling them in public and presenting them well. Thanks for doing that. I believe the opposite, and I extol my own heroic behavior for doing exactly the same thing. We are heroes on opposite sides of a little.
I'm perfectly fine with disagreeing. I just want to make sure that everyone else understands what both of the different positions are.
Your position relies upon objectivity of should, and my position denies objectivity of should.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
There we go. I'm with you on that. All right.
Excellent.
Okay. So to me or whatever, that clears up a good portion of things. So
cool.
We're doing good there.
Nice.
So let's see here. Okay. I want to, if you don't mind, I want to move to something off of this topic for a minute. Is that cool? Can we shift gears, or do you have more you want to stay focused on here for a minute?
I totally don't mind the shifting of gears. I do recognize that my endurance is limited, so if we can keep it 10 minutes, I'm all in.
Yeah. How about we do this? Let's go downhill. Like we'll totally go a little softer or whatever, and we'll wrap up here and stuff. I want to know, what's your favorite I know this is going to seem dramatic. What's your favorite what do you call it? Medium for entertainment?
By screen time, YouTube, and often listening to music on YouTube while I'm walking.
Yes, lots of YouTube. Oh.
Yeah, YouTube is like my feed for audio in my ear and my eyeballs. It's just convenient as heck.
Yeah. Well, I used to joke when I was younger that I got my bachelor's degree in YouTube. Yeah. Today, though, I think I have a PhD finally.
It's a great reference for misinformation, horribleness, great music, audiobooks, all sorts of good stuff.
Yes, and conversations just like this.
Yeah. The signal to noise ratio is relatively poor.
The which one?
The signal to noise ratio, especially regards facts and misinformation, is relatively poor on YouTube.
The signal to noise ratio.
Yeah, the quality of information relative misinformation is very poor on YouTube.
Well, I don't know. Today, to me, all of the ratio has gotten tremendously terrible almost everywhere. Yeah. Like information, I used to rely so much more on information, and today it's hard to know what to believe, right?
Well, I don't. That's the cool thing. When I'm compiling a list, I might ask ChatGPT to fill in a list and then not trust that anything on there is correct and literally fact check every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then I get mostly right because my fact checking only gets me to mostly right or high confidence. That's it.
So
As far
why
as
do
I
you
can
do
go.
that?
Well,
Well,
ChatGPT
why
might,
do you fact check them?
because I care about believing true things that allow me to make future testable predictions about what's real in the world. If
Gotcha.
I don't have a connection to the real in the world part, and that's where my fact checking is. Just I know I'm wrong. Let's see if I can get less wrong. I'm not ever expecting to get completely right or perfect or precise or even high confidence on things, but in general, I muddle through.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that for myself as a youth as well, like fact checking and doing all those things. And yeah, you have to fact
Yeah.
check Chat GPT and stuff like that
Yeah.
because,
It's a huge problem of induction because what can you trust to fact check things against? Well, it's a sliding scale. You're trying to
mhm.
things that are more, you're trying to lean into the more trustworthy and then maybe get a little more confidence because they mostly agree with each other.
Mhm.
It's
You can only
all those
fact check
problems of
things.
induction. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
you can only fact check things if you have some moniker of truth.
right, right. So when you're done with your fact checking, at most you should have improved your confidence, not necessarily made it anything like certain.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I think it's really important. Yeah, when I was young and researching lots of different things like that, um, yeah, having some sort of foundation from which I can kind of leapfrog to the next thing was kind of a big deal. And I don't know, I guess my journey was it was very peculiar growing up, and having conversations and arguing and disagreeing with family members and friends and all of those things is always been quite the challenge growing up, but I guess I've grown used to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, yeah, I'm actually also totally curious, and I know completely off topic and stuff, but do you have pets?
Yes.
You seem
My
like a
pets are
deep,
birds.
deep pet lover.
Yeah, my pets are birds and my family's pets are cats, and they are trained to be okay with each other. They they are allowed in the same room together.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
that's really encouraging. At least you don't have that Tweety Bird and Sylvester issue.
Yeah. My hen is not close. At this time of day, she's off in the backyard looking for bugs.
Yeah, I myself, I wanted a dog, but I never ended up being able to get a dog, and it
Yeah.
was quite the bummer.
My flock is kind of small right now. We are looking to move out to a desert place where I will have much better place. So I'm letting my flock naturally shrink down, and then I'll reestablish it later.
That's so. What do you mean you let it shrink down?
They die.
Okay, okay, all right,
They
all right.
die, and if I don't allow them to breed or bring in new, then if I steal all the eggs, then they shrink as a flock in their natural course of things.
So I wasn't sure that you were just going as like, well, they kind of grow up, and then I have chicken for a little while, and then
Now, with my pets, I actually have a deal. It's a one-sided deal that they'll never see my pan. Uh,
okay, that sounds
and
like a good.
it's a one-sided thing because it's not like they could enforce or whatever. And I actually, if they died in a way that didn't ruin the meat, I would really find it good if somebody were to eat them that didn't know them.
Okay.
Would love to hand it to a friend who'd never met my bird and maybe even didn't know that this was my pet and
Mhm.
say, "Here's a chicken for you to eat."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think that
yeah.
would
I've
be
never.
an honoring way to deal with it. But my personal thing, I would not be able to eat something that I knew. I just have a revulsion. I'm not going to try to fix it. This is not something I want to get over, whether it's good idea or not.
You're not working on that one.
Not working on that one, even if it's daft or stupid. No, just leave me out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you know what? I had something that I actually worked on that it was a food-based issue that
Hmm.
like a long time ago I ate some mozzarella sticks and
Yeah.
I got terribly sick,
Oh.
right?
Uh,
And so then I literally like to look at them, I would literally feel sick,
yeah.
afterwards.
Sure.
But I was like, I know that they're good. I just have to. And so I actually forced myself to eat them. Now I actually had to
Mhm.
cover them in marinara to
Okay.
kind of force them down my mouth in order to be able to do it. But after a period of time, and it took
Uh-huh.
time, it was not one time. My brain relearned to love mozzarella sticks.
It's my wife's favorite grilled cheese sandwich if I make it with mozzarella sticks.
Oh, you know what? I've never done
She
that.
really likes that.
That's a
It,
really
it's a
interesting
mix,
thing.
really, I think her favorite is a mix of half cheddar and half mozzarella. But anyway,
So you
close
know
enough.
what? I think if nothing else, that'll be my big takeaway from our conversation
Excellent.
was
Yes,
mozzarella
mozzarella
stick,
and
grilled cheese and cheddar.
I do like
Yeah.
the sharp cheddar. The sharp cheddar means
Yes.
cheddar. Yes.
That is a great idea.
Sharp cheddar.
Well, here, thanks so much for the conversation, Dali, and I'll let you power down and regenerate.
Thank you. I'm going to go have a meal now.
Yeah. Well,
Do
go
some
have a
exercise.
mozzarella sandwich and stuff or whatever. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll
I'm
look
going to end
forward
the
to,
broadcast. We both wave.
yep.